Hi, everyone. I'm so excited to be here. Before we begin, if anyone missed my R2D2 heels, and don't be ashamed to get up, take a look. It's worth it. They're so nice. Did you see? Also for this side, I'm including everyone. And now is your time to clap for my R2D2 heels. Thank you very much. I deserve it. They're so painful. Okay, now that we have that, we can start. So, hello, my name is May. Welcome to Code, Play, Repeat, How to Learn Any Programming Language. It's a big promise right there. But before I dive into things, let me tell you about a single point in time where I was under a lot of pressure. And I was in my last year of university, and I was willing to put in a lot of effort for getting my first job. And that's why I was under so much pressure when I was preparing for this job interview. Now, it's not always the case that you prepare for a job interview and you're under a lot of pressure. That's a very extreme thing to say. But let me prove this to you, that this pressure, it was on point. And that's because I had 24 hours. Oh, what's going on here? Okay, I had 24 hours until the job interview. And what I needed to do during those 24 hours, other than sleep and all the other human things, I needed to create a project in Clojure. How did I end up in this situation where I only have 24 hours to create an entire project in Clojure? That's a very good question. Let's go back to an hour earlier. So I got a call from Linda from HR, and she said that I moved to the last part in the hiring process. Yay! And then she said this. So you mentioned that you already have a project in Clojure? I mentioned that. Yep, I think I did. You're a very good listener, Linda. Good for you. Okay. So I was like, okay, look, I don't have a project in Clojure per se. I just want to, I don't have a project in Clojure yet, but I can do it, and I can get it done by tomorrow. Did I say that? Was it words that came out of this person? Good job, May. What did I get myself into? A project in a language that I'm not familiar with. I just heard of it, that it exists, in 24 hours. Back then, I did not know how I am going to do this. I was lost. But today I know how. And by the end of this talk, you'll know how too. And this is why you attended this talk. Code, Play, Repeat, How to Learn Any Programming Language by me, May Beisaron. So let me tell you a little bit about myself. So I've been a backend engineer for over 5 years, and then I decided to join the dark side, and this is how I became a senior platform engineer at Forder, which was about 3 years ago. I'm an international public speaker, which means that I love to talk a lot in different places. Also a mentor, which means that I love to help other people become the tech speakers that they want to be. So feel free to reach out to me. I promise I will be nice. I'm also a party girl, maybe not the kind of parties that you think, because the parties that I like to join are Diablo 4 parties. Woo, those are fun. And I'm a sworn Star Wars fan. We already had that nailed down, right? When everyone clapped for my R2D2 heels. Thank you for the claps. And I love those heels, although they are horrible pain every single moment that I'm standing on this stage. Okay, let's get back to business. So, 24 hours, I needed to create a project in Clojure. And Clojure is a functional programming language, which I was not very much familiar with. I knew that I needed some project. I don't need a big project, but I wanted something that will be impressive enough so they will give me that job. And so I started thinking, but before I started to think, like, what am I going to do, I decided to just start, wandering around in the documentation. And I really wanted to get this job. I knew that this company works with Clojure, and it's a good place to start my career. So I went into the documentation, and I started to wander around. It looks okay. I looked at a bunch of great tutorials. And as time went by, I was like, oh, It's been 3.5 hours. I have nothing. Wow, okay, this clock is ticking. I have 20 hours left to complete this project, and I have zero progress. Why? I mean, I know how to code. I've been doing a few things, and tutorials. Tutorials are good. You listen, you type in a little few things. You know how to do a bunch of stuff. You're introduced with the syntax. But why did I not make any progress? Why was it not helpful in creating a project rather than being familiar with the syntax? Now, here's the thing. I want to ask you a question. Let's say I have a private plane. And let's say that I have this private plane and I'm inviting all of you to join me on a ride. And then I would tell you this. Look, I watched a bunch of tutorials on how to fly this plane. I watched 3.5 hours of tutorials for flying this plane. Who's on board? Who's coming? Are you all? Show of hands. As expected. Because watching tutorials that you can be familiar with the language. So if I would watch tutorials for flying a plane, then I would be probably familiar with the dashboard, what buttons I can press. But obviously, there is nothing like doing something hands-on with the experience that comes from trying and actually writing a program, writing a project, something that has more depth to it. And that is the difference between watching tutorials and actually doing something in the language. Because when you watch tutorials, you will learn about the functions, you will learn about maybe the loops, or you will learn about how do you do conditions and data structures, but you won't learn about the methods of how to actually leverage this language to the extent of it, to how to actually get the most out of this language. And that's the difference. Let's go back to the story. Stressed, frustrated, extreme anxiety. Those are all were all true to that moment. And just as I thought that things can't go bad, this happened. So my internet was down, and I started playing. And I got very, very good at the game. And I felt so nice. Look, that's an achievement. Okay, maybe I'll just turn off my phone and no internet until tomorrow, and I won't reply to anyone. But hey, I will be very good at this game. And then I thought, oh my God, yes, that's a great idea. Because games are fun, and that's pretty easy to do. And now I know what I need to do. So it's been 40 minutes of playing, okay, but I know that I'm on the road to failure, so I might as well enjoy the ride, which is how I came up with the idea to create a simple game in Clojure. Now, some might argue that Clojure is not the best language for game development, okay, but hear me out. It's fun. I mean, what's more fun than playing good old Pac-Man? Okay, there are things that are more fun than playing good old Pac-Man, but this was fun at the time because I knew that I'm onto something. I knew that instead of thinking about a program where I'll have to think about maybe the structures in it, or there's maybe going to be added complexity to the logic of the project itself, here what I have is an opportunity to develop something that is relatively simple but still gives me the chance to show those recruiters that I can do it. I can do something that is not as simple as a to-do list, for example. So that's what we're going to look at today. We're going to talk about the method for learning a new language. And specifically, it was helpful for learning functional programming language because it helped me to take easy steps into understanding functional programming because it was something that I was definitely not familiar with. So now let's talk about the easy start. In a show of hands, how many of you know Clojure? Okay, we can be friends. But I'll be friends with also the rest of you if you learn Clojure. Okay, but so now in a show of hands, those who don't know Clojure, how many of you think that you can implement this game in Clojure? How many of you think that you can now do it? No ChatGPT, by the way, just documentation. You go, you look at the documentation, and you start writing something until you have that. A few. Makes sense. Very little. Okay. And it makes sense because you're not familiar with Clojure, and even if you look at the documentation, there's a bit more depth to creating a 2D game. You need to know how to handle data structures. You need to know how to handle state. And those are things that are a bit more difficult to get out of pure documentation, which is why that's not how you do it. You don't just start writing from scratch. This is what I did. I found a game already written in Clojure, and the game is just a cow walking from side to side, collecting apples. Amazing adventure, this game. But now, if I would ask you a question, let's say I show you the Clojure code of this game. Who here would be able to change the string that defines the image of the cow? Who can do that? A lot of hands, right? Because if you're familiar with coding, it means that you will be able to go through the code and look for the PNG where it says cow.png if they named it, in a sensible way. And then what you will be able to do is to change it into something different that is maybe not a cow. So that's an easy start. This is how you start. You find a 2D game, and if it's simple enough, you will be able to go through the code and understand what's going on there. And that's what I did. I was not familiar with Clojure, but if I see a cow walking from side to side, I can probably start to figure out what's going on in that piece of code, even if I'm not familiar with the syntax. I can see that it says left or, go left, go right, collect apple, and that's the code that I used. And I used the cow game in Clojure. And just out of curiosity, I tried to look if there are other simple 2D games such as this one, and I found out that there are. So if you want to learn any of the following languages, here are a few good GitHub repositories, which I found later on. And those would be a good start if you do want to learn any of these languages. You just find a 2D game and go from there. Start looking into those repositories, try to understand what's going on in there. So for example, we have Snake in Python. We have Tetris in MATLAB, if you're brave. That's a very, interesting code. I don't know what I think about it, but it's here for the brave people. And then, like I said, the cow game. So the first thing was finding a simple 2D game and start by changing images, like images or colors. So over here, you can see that even if we don't know Clojure, if we take a look at the code of this specific game, we can see that what we have over here is the main screen, and then we see background, apple orchard, and then we have cow PNG. And then over here, we can see that there is the associate texture apple PNG. So it means that if I don't want the cow to pick up apples anymore, but I want it to be, bananas, I can start playing around with that. And if I want to change the cow into something or the background into something, this is where I would start. I would start by changing these. And I looked for the images, and this is how I did it. Now, it's a very small step, but this is how you approach new code, right? You don't start by, going all crazy and trying to change it all at once. You want to start with a small enough things so you know that you're in the right direction. Another thing, so that was the first thing that I did, and over here you can see that I changed it into an astronaut that collects ugly monsters from Space Invaders, and that was the result. And as you can see, it does basically the same thing as the cow game. It just moves from side to side, collect ugly monsters. And then now I knew that I needed to take it to the next step in order to understand better what's going on there. So what I did was I started to change more things. I changed the movement. I looked at the update player position function, and I found the place where you can manage the direction where you move. And I just added, this is how you move on the x-axis, and I just added a new a new direction to move in. I added the Y direction, which is again a huge improvement. Now this game is amazing and crazy, but but what it really is, it means that if I was able to change something without breaking the code and it still runs, it means that I'm going somewhere with it. So I started by changing the movements, adding different items, adding screen boundaries. These are all things that if you do in that game that you found in a language that you're not familiar with, and if you're able to accomplish these challenges, it means that you will learn the way that this language works. You will start to understand the flow. You will understand how data structures are being handled, how to add conditionals. All of these things are included in a game, and you can learn them by doing those changes. So that was the next step. I added more dots, and I changed the image to Pac-Man, from cow to Pac-Man, just because I thought it was cuter. And then the last part was to start implementing myself, to add more things, to change the game completely, because at the end of the day, I did want to show something in that interview which was not lame copy-paste of a cow game in Clojure. So I took it to the next level, and I created this final version of the game, which you saw at the beginning. And so you see it worked, but why? Why did it work? Why was it so good, this method of learning? It's not something that I invented, although I wanted to feel like I did. There is the 70-20-10 learning model, which says that 10% comes from formal learning, like if you listen in class, if you read something, documentation, tutorials, anything that is passive learning. You look, listen at information, and then you learn 10% of it. Then there's 20% of learning from others. This is where this code from GitHub goes into play, because I look at someone else's code, I see how they implemented stuff. It can be by feedback, it can be by someone else's code that I play with, and then they give me feedback on that. So 20% comes from learning from others. And you see where this is going, right? Where the 70% is on-the-job learning. And I am sure that you've all experienced it, how you join a new company and you read their documentation, but you actually know what to do only after you implemented a bunch of things, only after you started to solve things. And they always give you like a small challenges at the beginning, like solve this small bug, try to do this testing for this place. And that's because learning in small steps is the most efficient learning. And changing something small in a big system, it means that you need to understand what's going on around it, but you don't have to understand the entire system, which is exactly what I'm doing here. So if you want to learn a new language, remember this method. Work with a 2D game. Now, before we finish, I just want to say this. Why would you do it with a 2D game? You can do it with anything else, right? You can take any repository from GitHub. But the thing about a 2D game is it doesn't have a business logic knowledge gap. So even if I join a new company and they want me to start working on their services, there is still a knowledge gap over there. There's business logic to the services. I need to understand the entire system. There's a lot going on there. But if I do a 2D game, there is no knowledge gap. Like, okay, it's Pac-Man. It moves from side to side. I'm not talking about adding the monsters and whatnot, okay? But Snake, it moves from side to side. Okay, there isn't a lot of logic over there. So, and the game includes a lot of the most important concepts for a programming language, like loops, conditionals, data structures, threading, and those are the things that you will want to use when you start working with that new language. So 2D game gives you all of that. And when you start working on a 2D game and you go back to the documentation, you're now doing something that is called goal-oriented documentation reading, which is way more useful than just scrolling around documentation. If you're looking for something specific of how to do that, if you're looking for answers to your questions, it means that the learning is actionable. It means that you're learning out of actions and not out of passive learning. And it's fun. That's it. Like, no logic there. It's just fun for me, at least. I think it might be fun for you too. If you want to learn MATLAB, go to that repository. I want to see it happening. And until then, I will say thank you.